Welcome to The Authentic Life with KL, the podcast where we throw out the rule book, where we dive in head first to the real and raw, unapologetic journey of living the best life. That includes lots of music. This is your go-to space for empowerment, for deep healing and owning your authenticity like the boss that you are. We're here to break down walls and slay self-doubt. Vibe to the soundtrack of your soul. With every beat and lyric, we'll move through stories that heal and empower. You can live your fullest and most badass life. Welcome to The Authentic Life with KL. This episode of The Authentic Life with KL is brought to you by Break the Silence, a nonprofit created using music as a platform to raise awareness for mental health, suicide prevention, and recovery of all kinds, offering hope and starting the hard conversations to bring communities together. Hey guys, it's Kitty, and it's all Kitty today. I wanted to jump on and talk to you about something very special that I just was able to do. And I was able to do it because, well, I just decided to do it and I pushed myself to do it. And I'm so proud of it. I wrote and published a book called What Saved Us: The Stories of Why We Stay. And I really did this with the intention of making this a kind of in-between part, this space in between what I'm doing or what I was doing, right? And what I am doing currently, and then the documentary that I want to do. This book is really a huge piece of my heart. It is emotional for me to go back and read it, and then even to look at the book finished. It's emotional for me because it was a lot of letting go within the book. And I want to talk about that before I share more about the book. We have such a difficult time letting go. And I say it all the time, just let go, that way something new can come in. And letting go is really difficult for anyone that has ever been through anything, right? Think about the times that we're going to let go of something, and then we try and we try and we fail and we fail. We have this emotional connection with who we are, with who other people are, with physical things, with emotional things. And honestly, we find comfort within this consistency, even if it's not something that we want. It could be a person, it could be a place, a thing, it could be all kinds of different things, but we find comfort within this stability, even if we are not happy, even if we are not being fulfilled in life. And The Authentic Life, of course, was born around rediscovering who you are. To rediscover who you are, you have to let go of the preconceived expectations you have, the preconceived everything, anything. To live authentically, you have to let go of a lot of expectations that you have on other people, other things, and the way things play out, the way things you thought that they would be. Because we love to play fortune teller and expect things to turn out a certain way, or expect people to be just like us. And that's one of the hardest parts, I think, about being human, is we are all here and we're all playing the same game by different rules. We're all wanting everyone to react to situations just like we would. And that's not how it is. It's simply not how it's going to ever be. Letting go is this beautiful walking contradiction of what we believed life would be. We don't ever want to think that we need to let something go. And it's not always a big thing to let go. Sometimes it's just the expectation you put on the people around you. Sometimes it's letting go of things from childhood. Sometimes it's letting go of resentment. And when you let go, you have this space that's left available. And sometimes that's the uncomfortable part. But when you let go, it gives you this freedom and this space to be able to invite in things that are more aligned with who you are. They're more aligned with what you need in life. There's no way you'd be able to keep everything for everything after all the years that you've, grabbed things and taken things and had new friends and old friends. Can you imagine continuing to try and just live a life without ever letting anything go? It's hard, but it's life. And this book allowed me to let go of a lot of different things. Most of you guys know that I lost my brother several years ago, and it has been a journey on trying to go through the things that I thought I was healed from or I thought didn't bother me. My brother was the one person or one of the people I never thought I would feel abandoned from. And it's so crazy that some of the things I've healed from feel like abandonment. And that's wild to circle back around and think that you're healed and then struggle with, why did you leave me? And then fast forward to now, I am so grateful that I'm so grateful that I was chosen to be his sibling, that I was chosen to be there with him. I'm so grateful to have the experience that I did. It wasn't easy. It was hard. It continues sometimes to be hard, but I am who I am today because of what I walked through in this journey. All the heartache from childhood, all the heartache from loss, all the struggles, all the tribulation, all brought me right here to this moment. And I am often chosen from many people to be the one that is there holding space for other people's stories. I am trusted to hold space for stories of heartbreak, of redemption, of struggles, of life, of rising from the ashes, of all kinds of stories. And that's because I decided to speak up on my story. And that was always my hope. Maybe someone will see themselves within my story. And they did. So the book, What Saved Us, is so close to my heart because it is definitely about the things that saved me, but collectively we're all one. It's about the things that saved us. It's about the things that kept us here one more day. And I hope that when you read it, that you're able to take away a different way of looking at the small things in life and the small gifts that you see, maybe you dismiss sometimes, because they can become the biggest things. They can become the greatest things and some of the most important things. So I want to read a couple chapters in different parts for you, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it. The opening says, the moment before the turning point. There is a moment in many people's lives where everything becomes quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but the kind of quiet that comes when the world feels too heavy to carry anymore. Maybe it happens late at night when the house is asleep and the thoughts you've been pushing away finally catch up with you. Maybe it happens sitting in the parked car, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than usual, trying to gather the strength to walk back into a life that suddenly feels unfamiliar. Maybe it happens in a hospital room or after a phone call that changes everything. Sometimes it arrives slowly. Sometimes it arrives all at once. But when that moment comes, people often find themselves standing in the same place emotionally, staring into the unknown and wondering one terrifying thing: how am I going to survive this? For a while, the world can feel unbearably small. Pain has a way of shrinking everything around it. Your thoughts, your hope, your sense of direction. But if you listen closely to the stories of people who have walked through those moments, you begin to notice something remarkable. Almost everyone can point to something that appeared in the darkness, something unexpected, something that helped them take one more breath, one more step, and stay one more day. Sometimes it was a song that said exactly what their heart could not explain. Sometimes it was a stranger who listened without judgment. Sometimes it was a child. Sometimes it was a child that reminded them they were still needed. Sometimes it was therapy or faith or nature or creativity. Sometimes it was a quiet voice deep inside that whispered a single word, stay. When people look back at the hardest chapters of their lives, they often realize something extraordinary. They were never alone. There was always something or someone that helped carry them through. A lifeline, a moment, a connection, and a reason. This book began with a simple question, a question that has opened doors to 1,000 of deeply human stories. What saved you? The moment everything changed. There are moments in life where everything feels ordinary. You wake up, you make coffee, you answer the messages, and you move through the quiet rhythm of the day that feels like every other day before it. Nothing feels different. Nothing feels like it's about to change. And then sometimes without warning, life shifts. Not the kind of shift that gently nudges you into a new direction, but the kind that stops you in your tracks. The kind that rearranges everything you thought you understood about your life. Sometimes it arrives with a phone call. Sometimes it arrives in a hospital room. Sometimes it arrives in a moment of silence so heavy, it feels like the air itself changed. Sometimes it's the moment you realize someone you love is slipping away from you, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, pulled into something you cannot reach. You can't fix, no matter how hard you try. Sometimes it's the moment you realize life will never look the same again. The moments rarely announce themselves. They don't come with warnings, they simply arrive. And once they do, there's no going back to the version of yourself that existed before. For many people, the moment everything changed is tied to loss. Loss of a person, loss of a relationship, loss of a dream, loss of the life that they thought that they were building. Sometimes it's an addiction entering into the life of someone you love and slowly reshaping everything around you. Sometimes it's grief arriving suddenly and leaving silence behind you that you don't know how to fill. Sometimes it's trauma, betrayal, illness, or heartbreak. Whatever the circumstance, the experience shares a common thread. It cracks the world open. It strips away the illusion that life is stable and predictable. It reveals just how fragile everything can be. And in that moment, many people find themselves standing in a place they never imagined they could be. A place where the questions become louder than the answers. A place where survival itself feels uncertain. When life cracks open like this, something else happens. The world becomes quiet. Not the peaceful quiet, but the kind of quiet where your mind begins replaying every moment that led you here. The kind of quiet where your heart feels heavy with questions that may never have answers. The kind of quiet where you sit alone with your thoughts and wonder how life could possibly continue in the shape that it is. Many people experience the quiet late at night when the house is asleep and the distractions of the day fade. When the truth of what you're feeling finally catches up. You lie wide awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about what happened, thinking about what could have been different, thinking about how the future suddenly feels very unfamiliar. Somewhere in those quiet moments, a question begins to surface, sometimes softly, sometimes with the weight that presses deep into your chest. How am I going to survive this? It's not always asked out loud. Sometimes it exists as a feeling more than a sentence, a heaviness, the uncertainty, a sense that you have stepped into a chapter of life you were never prepared for. For some people, the moment begins at the lowest point of their lives, a place where everything feels too overwhelming to carry. But something remarkable often begins to happen in the middle of the darkness. Not immediately, not dramatically, and not in the way movies or stories portray healing. Instead, it begins quietly, almost invisibly, a small moment, a pause, a thread of light in a space that once felt completely dark. It might be a conversation with someone who finally listens without trying to fix you. It might be a piece of music that somehow understands exactly what your heart's been trying to say. It might be a moment outside where the wind moves through the trees and reminds you that the world is still moving, even when you're stuck. It might be a child who needs you, a friend who refuses to give up on you, a child who offers kindness at exactly the right moment. These moments are easy to overlook. From the outside, they seem small, ordinary, and unremarkable. But for someone standing on the edge of their hardest chapter, these moments can mean everything. These moments become lifelines. And that was chapter 1. Chapter 2 is the song that held me together. There's several more chapters. I'm going to stop on becoming what saved you. Chapter 8. There is something powerful that happens when someone tells the truth about their life, not the polished version, not the version that fits neatly into a caption or a quick summary, the real version, the messy human, sometimes the painful version. People often keep hidden because they believe no one else would understand. For a long time, many people carry their hardest moments in silence. They assume their grief is too complicated, their trauma too heavy, their mistakes are way too embarrassing, or their pain is too personal to be spoken out loud. So they hold it inside. They move through their lives smiling when they need to. They move through their lives smiling when they need to. Do you hear that? They move through their lives smiling when they need to, working when they have to, showing up for everyone else, quietly wondering if anyone could still see them the same way if they knew their full story. Something remarkable happens when one person finds the courage to speak honestly. The moment someone says, "This happened to me," something shifts. Another person realizes they're not the only one. Someone else feels their shoulder drop a little. Another person feels seen in a way they never felt before. Because the truth is, most of us are walking around carrying the stories we think are only us, and that they belong to only us, but they rarely do. The human experience is full of invisible connection. Grief recognizes grief. Pain recognizes pain. Hope recognizes hope. And when people begin sharing their stories, those invisible connections start to appear. Someone talks about losing a sibling. Another person quietly wipes away a tear because they lost one too. Someone talks about addiction in their family. Someone else feels the familiar ache of a life that has been shaped by the same storm. Someone talks about the moment they almost gave up, and suddenly a room full of strangers realize they have all stood closer to that edge than anyone ever knew. Stories have a way of dissolving the illusion that we're alone. They remind us that survival is not something we do in isolation. It's something we discover together. Sometimes it takes only one person hearing the other person say, "I've been there." Not to fix the pain, not to erase the past, but to remind us that the road forward has already been walked by someone else. And if they found their way through it, maybe we can too. For many people, the moment they begin sharing their story is the moment that their healing actually begins. Not because their pain disappears, but because the silence does. Silence has a way of making pain feel permanent. It traps people in their belief that their experiences are something to hide. Stories do the opposite. Stories bring things to the light. They create bridges between people who might otherwise never have known that they needed each other. Sometimes those bridges become lifelines. Sometimes someone hears a story that sounds like their own. Someone else hears words that they needed to hear. Someone finds hope in a place that they never expected to find it. When people speak honestly about what they have lived through, they unknowingly give permission for others to do the same. They create spaces where truth is welcomed instead of avoided, where vulnerability becomes strength instead of weakness, where survival is something to be honored rather than hidden. Every story that is shared becomes another thread in the largest tapestry of what it means to be human. A tapestry woven with loss and resilience, heartbreak and courage, the quiet moments where someone decides to keep going even when they're not sure how. When you step back and look at it, something extraordinary becomes clear. None of us survived our hardest moments completely alone. Some of us were saved by music, some by love, some by purpose, some by a stranger who showed up in the right moment, some by the responsibility of caring for someone, some by faith, some by creativity, some by the quiet realization that the world might still hold something beautiful we had not seen yet. Each story is different, but the thread that runs through all of them is the same. Something showed up. Something held us steady long enough for us to take the next breath, the next step, the next day. And when people begin sharing these moments with each other, something powerful begins to form. A reminder that even in the darkest chapters of life, something can still reach through the darkness. Something can still save us. So, your story matters. Your story matters. There's several chapters in the book, but it is an easy read, I'll say. Well, it's a short read. It may not be easy. One of my favorite chapters is chapter 12. This is a story from the collective. And I'm going to read 2 little stories from the collective for you. This is the moment I was seen. There was nothing unusual about going to a concert with my best friend. This was our thing. We had done it countless times before. Music was our escape, our reset, our way of shaking off the weight of the world. On this particular night, we went to a small venue in a little Oklahoma town. The plan was simple. We were there to see the opening band, the only band we actually knew. Once they finished their set, we figured we would head home. After all, we both had work the next morning. When the opening band wrapped up, we stood up from our table and started getting ready to leave. Just another normal night, or so I thought. Something very unexpected happened. The singer from the next band walked out on stage and called me out for getting up and leaving. Immediately, I froze. I'm not someone who enjoys being called out in front of a lot of people. In fact, I tend to shrink when that happens. So I sat right back down at that table as fast as I could, hoping to disappear into the crowd. Inside my head, my thoughts were racing. Really? Why does it matter? I need to go home. I have to go to work. Excuse after excuse ran through my mind as I sat there, feeling slightly embarrassed and completely confused about why it even mattered. Looking back now, I realized something important. At the time, it felt uncomfortable. But what I didn't realize in that moment, I was just seen. For him, it was probably nothing more than a friendly banter from the stage, just a quick moment with someone in the audience. But for me, it was something bigger. In a moment where I felt exposed and unsure, the universe quietly shifted something. That tiny interaction, something that could have easily been forgotten, became the beginning of a friendship that was so unexpected. Sometimes the moments that change our lives don't feel meaningful at first. Sometimes they even feel awkward. But looking back, I can see the strange and beautiful way the universe moves people into each other's paths for reasons we can't always understand. Every day I'm grateful for the friendship that moment caused. The universe works in wild ways, and sometimes it knows exactly what we need long before we do. And the next one is Tomorrow is Never Promised. I don't remember exactly how I met Zach, yet in that short time with him, it was impactful. He was a young man of 22 with end-stage bone cancer. He saw in me what I had hidden from everyone for years, and he told me to reclaim myself, as tomorrow is never promised. He gifted me a deck of cards that I have to this day, with a promise that I would use them, and I have kept that promise. Although he has passed on, his message to not let myself stay silent was reinforced recently, and I am forever grateful to him for that. This one's called She Never Wavered. There are people you meet who inspire you to jump up and get moving. They help you see yourself in a new way. Even if you don't talk aloud to them, they are the ones that you hold dear. They are the ones that spark your fire inside of you to become more than you were yesterday, to move in ways that you don't think were possible. There is one that has done this for me, and she saved me when I was at my lowest. She never wavered in her desire for me to be myself, to see myself, and to love myself, and she has done the same for many others. Without her to give me that extra push at that time in my life and remind me of who I am, I would still be quite hidden away from doing anything. Being seen was not the goal, but being heard was, and she just listened. And that's all I needed to get moving, and I love her for that. I was heard, and it changed my life in many ways. I love that one because this is why I do what I do. It's why I do what I do. I do what I do because people need to be heard. People's story matters. Your story matters. Healing can start when you can lift up that weight and throw it away and tell your story. It's hard sometimes. It's emotional sometimes. Your story matters because someone else out there knows what it's like, or someone else out there is looking for someone that knows what it's like. And you might be that person. You might be that person. Further in the book, I do a workbook reflection on discovering your story, and then you have all kinds of goody good reflection questions. And that is just a little snippet of what saved us. It's short, it's impactful, it's filled with different words that can affect you in different ways. Hopefully opening your mind a little bit for you to see the beauty that's around you, for you to see the good things that are around you. There is so much good. There is so much good. And I'm not going to sit on here and pretend like everything is rainbows and sunshine, because there's a lot of yuck, right? There's a lot of bad stuff going on. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens to us. But that's what we expect. That's what we're always looking for, is the next shoe to drop, the next bad thing. What if you change your way of thinking? What if you're looking for the next good thing to happen? The bad is there. We don't have to we don't have to do a whole lot to find it. But what if you change the way that you look at things? What if you look for good? You look for ways that you can connect. I was reading a book. And it said, we're not in show business. We're in the business of connection. I do what I do for connection. I do what I do because I am here on this planet to create a bridge for others to feel seen, to feel heard. I am so grateful that you guys choose me to tell your stories to. And I thank you so much for being a part of such a big part of my journey on this book of What Saved Us. If you guys do want a copy of it, you can contact me, or you can go to kittylynn.com and it is available on there as well. Again, thank you so much for being a part of something so important to me and so impactful for the future of so many people. Keep striving for authenticity. Keep peeling back the layers that aren't you. That way, the real you can come out and play. Love you.